A whip cracks through the air as an overseer berates his workers for being too slow. More Mabas is losing his cool, screaming that they can't even handle a simple weed after all this time. The laborers are putting everything they have into moving these massive tree trunks. More Mabas is terrified. If the master sees this mess, he's convinced he'll be demoted to living in a pigsty. He knows this isn't just some run-of-the-mill noble he's dealing with. This is the heir to the legendary Riftarmer family, a name that commands respect across the kingdom. The first duke was an absolute beast who conquered vast lands for the Black Iron Kingdom. He wasn't just a leader. He was a warrior famous for taking down a great dragon by himself. Using nothing but a longbow, he pierced the impenetrable scales of the beast and became a legend. Back in reality, More Mabas is threatening his workers with the whip to get that manor finished. He wonders why a high-ranking noble would be sent to a godforsaken dump like Sige Town. Then a terrifying thought hits him. Maybe the young master was actually exiled. If Roman is here and angry, he might just start executing people to vent his frustration. The idea of a vengeful noble arriving to no house has More Mabas sweating buckets. Suddenly, a worker stops in his tracks as he spots a familiar banner approaching from the distance. 3 red carriages come charging down the dirt road, kicking up a massive storm of dust. The Riftarmer family crest is flying high, confirming the master has arrived way ahead of schedule. More Mabas looks like he's about to pass out as he realizes he's completely out of time. He stands frozen with his whip in the air, staring at the convoy in shock. The lead carriage comes to a halt, and the staff quickly rolls out the red carpet for Roman Riftarmer. A boot steps out onto the plush carpet with the poise of a true high-ranking noble. More Mabas is literally clutching his bald head, wishing the ground would just swallow him whole. Roman stands tall and asks who's in charge of this place. The agricultural officer forces a nervous, sweating smile as he steps forward to introduce himself. He starts stammering through an apology about how they didn't have enough time to finish the house. More Mabas begs for 10 more days, promising to find the best accommodations in town for tonight. Roman isn't even paying attention. His eyes are fixed on a system screen only he can see. A digital interface flickers to life in his vision, establishing a neural link with the user. He scans the horizon, seeing a vast landscape that's absolutely perfect for reclamation. The system finishes loading his consciousness, hitting 100%. To him, this desolate land looks like the perfect setup for a farming simulation. A prompt appears asking if he's ready to create his destiny, and Roman doesn't hesitate. He gives a small smirk, relieved that Noah's Ark is finally back online. A massive holographic panel confirms that his new life as Roman is officially underway. He starts scrolling through his available functions, but most of his life story is still locked. He decides he's seen enough for now and shuts down the main menu. The system asks for a name for his new farm, and he simply calls it Origin. A pixelated notification pops up celebrating the successful creation of the farm. Roman turns back to the terrified officer and tells him there's no need to find him a room. More Mabas is convinced this is the part where he gets executed and starts panicking. But then he looks up with a puzzled expression as he realizes that the young master isn't actually mad. Roman just leans against a giant log and casually says he'll build the house himself. More Mabas stands there with his mouth hanging open, unable to process what he just heard. Roman doesn't care about the shock. He's already got his hands on a massive tree trunk, ready to start work. The etiquette tutor steps in, practically having a heart attack as he claims this kind of labor is beneath a man of Roman's status. Roman just hoists the log onto his shoulder, telling the old man that etiquette won't magically conjure a roof over their heads. The tutor looks completely lost, asking if the young master seriously plans on sleeping out in the open tonight. Roman doesn't see the big deal. He just wants a place to rest, even if it means building it himself. While the workers watch in silence, Roman is already elbow-deep in the heavy lifting. He turns to his knights, Saruman and the blonde guy, and tells them it's time for them to earn their keep. Saruman is visibly confused, probably never having held a tool in his life before today. Roman reminds them that if they don't help out, they'll be joining him in a very uncomfortable night under the stars. More Mabas is watching the scene unfold with a look of pure dread, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. He desperately tries one last time to offer a spot in Sige Town, literally begging for his life in his head. Roman shuts him down immediately with a cold and blunt refusal. He calls the local towns nothing more than pigsties and says he'd much rather breathe the clean forest air. Saruman lets out an annoyed sigh, clearly not enjoying this new, less-than-noble lifestyle. He tries to play it cool, claiming he doesn't mind the wilderness, but his expression says otherwise. Roman just keeps working, completely ignoring the knight's grumpy attitude. More Mabas is finally losing it, clutching his head and screaming internally for them to stop messing with his sanity. A small, knowing smirk plays on Roman's lips as he watches everyone struggle to keep up with him. He tells Saruman that if he's so unhappy, he can head to town and just never bother coming back. Roman looks at more Mabas and tells him to stop standing around and lead the knight to town already. The officer's brain has officially short-circuited. He's trying to find the right words, but his mind is racing. Suddenly, a loud ouch rings out as Roman delivers a quick kick to motivate his subordinate. He tells them they can go to town later, but they aren't leaving until the job for today is finished. The blonde knight and Saruman finally give in, grumbling as they start the back-breaking work of pulling weeds. Roman watches them from the side, making sure they don't slack off on their new chores. He eventually tells more Mabas he can leave for the night, but he better be back early tomorrow for new orders. More Mabas is so relieved he's actually moved to tears, happy to just get away for a few hours. He doesn't need to be told twice. More Mabas sprints away from the work site as fast as he can. The workers are left in disbelief, never imagining they'd see a high-ranking lord getting his hands dirty with them. Roman doesn't slow down for a second, manhandling the logs into position as the sun begins to set. By nightfall, the impossible has happened. A sturdy log cabin stands where there was once nothing. Roman wipes the sweat from his brow, satisfied with his new home and a nice boost to his construction experience. He looks at the cabin with a determined glint in his eyes, knowing this is just the beginning of his plan. He calls it a night and tells everyone to get some rest before the real work starts tomorrow. The tutor and knights are completely drained, mourning the loss of their noble dignity in this simple shack. Roman reflects on his past life, where he literally worked himself to death right before his college entrance exam. Now he's an illegitimate son in a declining noble family, but he's finally got a cheat system to change his luck. The world he's in is stuck in a stagnant medieval age, where the common folk are crushed under corrupt lords. Instead of playing along with the corruption, Roman chose the path of exile to build his own path. To the rest of the world, being sent to this desolate fief was no different than being banished. But with Noah's Ark by his side, Roman sees it as the perfect foundation to eventually seize other territories. Roman stares into the dark, contemplating a future where the world is wide and filled with things worth doing. He lies back on his simple bed, the system's interface hovering before him like a digital ghost. A golden prompt announces his daily login bonus, 100 primogems added to his stash. Roman's chibai form pouts, wishing the game had provided a more generous starting reward for its newest player. He eyes the cost of recruitment, 160 gems per pull, and wonders how long he'll have to wait. Since the recruitment pool is currently under construction anyway, he decides to let the gems pile up for now. With a final command to sleep, the young master drifts off into a well-earned rest. The next morning, the air is thick with the sounds of heavy labor and the rhythmic clashing of practiced swords. Roman crouches low, examining the soil and the weeds with a look of intense, focused dissatisfaction. More Mabas appears by his side, hands clasped together as he eagerly waits for his lord's next set of instructions. Roman tells the officer to have a massive pot of wheat porridge boiled, enough to serve 50 bowls to the workers. When the man stammers that one pot can't hold that much, Roman asks if he really needs to explain the concept of using more pots. More Mabas frets over their food supplies, while Steward Sane watches the exchange with a critical, aristocratic eye. Sane speaks up, bluntly stating that Roman's current lack of formality doesn't align with the proper rules of nobility. He remembers how Roman was always arrogant to the core, looking down on everyone even when he kept it hidden. Yet Roman was flawless, the most outstanding of his siblings in both arts and combat, and the Duke's clear favorite. But Sane senses something has shifted. Roman's arrogance used to be restrained, but now it feels completely unchained. He wonders if Roman has simply stopped pretending now that he's finally on his own sovereign land. Roman starts walking, telling more Mabas that he expects him to perform 3 specific tasks starting now. First, every record from Sige Town must be delivered to Steward Sane without delay. Second, the officer has 3 days to gain complete mastery over the town's population and occupational statistics. More Mabas nods vigorously, sweating as he assures Roman that he understands every single detail of the command. Roman's gaze turns cold as he warns the man that any discrepancies in his report will result in a very uncomfortable living situation. With the orders given, the young master watches as more Mabas scurries away to begin his mission. Roman turns to the laborers, ordering them to set aside a team to build proper toilets and a kitchen once they've finished eating. The workers stare back in stunned silence, completely baffled by a lord who cares about where they relieve themselves. They eventually manage a chorus of 1, acknowledging the command in the strange new way Roman has taught them. Roman smirks, thinking that by slave standards, even an extra bite of food makes him a remarkably benevolent master. He wonders if providing thick, warm porridge will be enough to earn him the status of a legendary top-tier ruler. He looks down at the field, his expression hardening as he prepares to start the real work. His hand grips the rough handle of a stone hoe, lifting the heavy tool from the dirt. He swings the hoe with a grunt of effort, a golden notification of planting EXP +1 popping up above his head. The system continues to track his progress with every strike, rewarding his manual labor with incremental experience. A celebratory screen appears. Roman has reached level 1 in planting, with his progress already climbing. Standing amidst the freshly tilled soil, Roman muses that his past life's heritage might be the secret to his farming talent. He reaches out to tap a new icon on his interface labeled Life Story, eager to see what's hidden inside. The screen fills with ancient wisdom regarding soil preparation, ridging, and protecting crops from the wind. Roman sifts through his basket of seeds, reminding himself that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. He looks at a handful of parsnip seeds, a root crop perfectly suited for planting in the early spring. Saruman and Aaron stand behind him, watching as their lord gets his hands dirty in the trenches. When Saruman asks when they'll finally go to town, Roman tells him there's no rush. The town isn't going anywhere. Roman looks at the two knights and tells them that while Aaron might manage, Saruman is far too terrible at farming to help. Aaron, the blonde knight in silver and blue plate armor, looks at Roman with a calm and dutiful expression. His face hardens slightly, his blue eyes showing his serious commitment to whatever task his lord has set before him. Roman places a supportive hand on Aaron's shoulder, telling the knight that he has exceptionally high expectations for him. 2 days pass, and the landscape is transformed into rows of neatly tilled earth, ready for the seeds of a new beginning. Roman stands tall in his noble attire, a system message hovering over him as a frantic figure approaches from the distance. More Mabas, the stocky bureaucrat with the red fringe of hair, rushes over to hand Roman a bundle of papers. Roman glances over the documents, his expression unreadable as he mentions the population of Sige town is around 1,900. More Mabas drops to his knees in terror, his voice trembling as he begins to stutter out a desperate explanation. The officer is convinced his life is over, fearing that this mistake is far worse than his previous failings. To his utter shock, Roman reaches out and gently pats his balding head, telling him that he has actually done quite well. Tears of relief well up in More Mabas's eyes as he looks up at Roman, who seems to radiate a divine, angelic light. Roman explains that it isn't More Mabas's fault, as the land hasn't been properly surveyed since his father first conquered it. He gazes out over the fields, his hand still resting on the head of the bewildered officer. Roman's voice turns sharp as he asks for the reason behind the sudden fluctuation of 100 people in the records. More Mabas explains that Sige town was originally a chaotic haven for runaway slaves and criminals, making it hard to control. Roman turns his back to the officer, telling him to stand up and speak plainly without all the groveling. Roman's crimson eyes narrow as he demands a full, detailed report on every single resident of the town. He picks up his hoe and returns to the work, his movements precise and practiced as he digs back into the soil. While he works, he listens to the officer, his mind processing the complex social hierarchy of his new territory. Roman Riftarmer strides across a reflective, starlit surface while analyzing the census for his new territory. A giant glowing scroll behind him lists the harsh reality of Sige town, where the population is skewed young because most people don't survive past 40. He sees that the town is held back by low productivity and widespread slavery, making it clear he has a massive job ahead of him to turn this place around. Satisfied with the summary, Roman dismisses More Mabas, telling him to get back to work while he inspects the last of the land. 3 more days of grueling labor pass, the camp slowly evolving into a more permanent settlement under the spring sun. The laborers continue to haul massive logs, their strength fueled by the steady supply of porridge Roman has provided. Sitting on his bed that night, Roman reviews his progress. He's reclaimed 10 acres, and his planting skill has finally reached level 2. Roman finally earns his first milestone, snagging 500 primogems for his first pot of gold. He's short on currency for a 10-pull, but he knows recruiting disciples is the only way to play this system right. He triggers the gacha, sending a brilliant streak of light across the night sky. 2 meteors descend toward the ground as the system processes the summit. A massive burst of energy erupts from the screen. The results are in. It's Saruman and Aaron. Roman stares at them, visibly annoyed that he pulled his own bodyguards. Saruman clocks in as a 3-star unit with some decent agility skills. Aaron is a 4-star tank, sporting a talent for tenacity and high-intensity labor. Roman realizes Aaron has been sandbagging this entire time, hiding his true strength during their spars. He decides to burn the rest of his gems and taps the summon button again. Another streak of light tears through the clouds. This time, 5 separate lights rain down at once. The screen flashes white as the new recruits manifest. He pulls Dota, a 2-star scout with an eye for detail. The rest are complete garbage, leaving Roman facepalming over his terrible luck. He sighs and decides he might as well just recruit everyone left in the pool at once. He hits the button for a final mass recruitment. 4 1-star characters pop out of the system. He leans back against the wooden wall, exhausted by the grind of what feels like a mobile game. The next morning, Roman tells Saruman he's heading into town to see the locals. Aaron is already geared up, while Saruman complains that the guy just put his armor on for show. The group arrives at Sage Town, a relatively quiet place centered around a stone fountain. More Mabas is waiting there, sweating as he wonders why the Lord suddenly decided to show up. Roman leads his knights through the gates on horseback, looking every bit the cold noble. The local official bows low as the horses trot past the gathered crowd. Roman's red eyes scan the sea of faces with zero emotion. He asks if this is the entire population, and more Mabas confirms everyone from the surrounding villages is present. It's been decades since a noble actually bothered these people, so they aren't used to being oppressed. They still have a bit of life in their eyes, unlike the broken peasants in other territories. Roman knows if he just stays quiet, they'll treat him like royalty, but that's not the plan. He announces himself as the new lord of Sage Town and their future ruler. He starts lecturing them, calling them ignorant for the crimes they've already committed. The townspeople trade worried glances, unsure of what they've done wrong. He raises his riding crop and declares that every fish, beast, and bird in this land belongs to him. He's reclaiming total ownership and won't let them waste his resources anymore. More Mabas wipes his brow, realizing things are about to get very ugly. Roman drops the hammer. Everyone has to pay a penalty of 1 gold coin for using his land without permission. He turns his horse and rides away, perfectly mimicking the demeanor of a high-end mighty noble. He knows he has a 3-year tax exemption, giving him total freedom to manipulate these people. A heavy silence falls over the town square. The residents look on in total despair, their lives upended in a single afternoon. The townspeople are in a total panic, begging Roman to show mercy because they can't afford such a massive fine. One guy shouts that Roman was happy to feed the slaves porridge, but now he's treating the free farmers like they're worth even less. Aaron doesn't like the tone and starts to draw his blade, the cold steel clicking as it leaves the scabbard. The sight of the knight's sword sends the crowd scrambling back in fear. Roman just watches them with those cold, piercing red eyes, completely unmoved by their begging. He gives them an ultimatum: pay up or do exactly what he says, starting with sending every child between 5 and 15 to his manor. His knights stand tall behind him, making it clear that his words aren't just empty threats. He ignores the crying and demands that all the merchants in the crowd step forward immediately. Among the townspeople, a man with a gold monocle watches Roman with a calculating look. He steps out from the mass of people, looking much more composed than the desperate peasants around him. Roman tells the merchants they've been operating without his permission and skipping taxes, so they're due for some punishment too. He's willing to forget their past debts for now, but from this moment on, every business deal has to go through him. He waits for a reaction, his expression as unreadable as stone. The man with the monocle bows low, agreeing that Roman is well within his rights to claim what's his. But then he asks a sharp question. Why is the Lord focusing on petty thieves while ignoring the real masters hiding in the mountains? Roman asks for his name, and the man introduces himself as Mori Perea, son of a prominent merchant. Roman's gaze lingers on him, recognizing the name of a powerful merchant family. He promises that a full investigation is coming, and that no one, whether a petty thief or a master bandit, will escape his reach. He drops another bombshell. All current farming is banned, and the old fields are to be left fallow. Anyone caught trying to plant crops without his express permission will face immediate execution. He's taking back every inch of land in Sage Town to completely overhaul their outdated farming methods. Everything will be redistributed according to his plan, and he expects nothing less than total obedience. More Mabas stands in the square, watching the lords retreating back as the crowd remains stunned. He's sweating bullets, realizing this is the kind of ruthless, noble authority he hasn't seen in a long time. He wipes his brow, wondering if the town will ever be the same after Roman is through with it. As the sun begins to set, the golden light washes over the fields where leaves dance in the breeze. Riding back, Saruman asks why Roman is being so hard on the locals after showing kindness to the slave. He points out that without exploiting the labor force, the manor won't even be able to afford basic white bread for the guards. Roman looks out over the landscape and asks what they should do if they really can't afford it. Saruman is caught off guard by the question, his mouth hanging open in confusion. He quickly backtracks, saying he's just a knight and will follow whatever orders Roman gives. Roman gives a small, rare smile and commends him for being a loyal knight who follows his master's lead. Then his etiquette tutor chimes in, arguing that taking the children away from their families is a step too far. The tutor explains that those kids are the backbone of their family's survival, helping with chores and labor. Roman clarifies that he's only picking the gifted ones for training and will make sure the younger ones are taken care of. He finds the current manor economy pathetic and wants to centralize everything to stop the constant waste. He isn't interested in being a kind father figure. He wants them to fear his authority so they don't try to take advantage of him. The tutor looks at him like he's lost his mind, unable to process Roman's radical ideas. Roman explains that shrinking the cultivated land is a necessity, and those who can't keep up are simply a liability. He breaks down the math, explaining how inefficient it is for a family to toil over 60 mu of land just to survive. The math is simple. If 1 grain of wheat produces 8, you can cut the required farmland in half. Roman Riftarmer calculates that 16 grains would let him scrap 3/4 of the land, but he knows hungry farmers are a recipe for an uprising. His goal is to maximize production to free up the people for other work, exactly as his past life's knowledge taught him. Roman watches the sunset, knowing he has to secure a stable food supply before the winter season sets in. He's aiming for an unprecedented return on his crops, feeling the weight of his family's legacy on his shoulders. With the town's draft oxen now officially under his control, he's consolidated every useful asset inside town. He knows that manual labor alone is a huge gamble, and he isn't a man who likes leaving things to chance. Complex calculations dance in his head as he plans to abandon the weak soil and focus all efforts on the most fertile zones. Word of his new orders hits the town like a thunderclap, leaving the residents in a state of absolute shock and panic. Mabas is finally at his wit's end, screaming at the rioting crowd to shut their mouths and listen. He's shaking with rage and fear, telling them that he's completely powerless to change the mind of a noble like Roman. He shoves his way through the panicked residents, desperate to get away from the mounting tension in the square. Some of the townsfolk try to play it cool, desperately hoping that Roman is just putting on a show of authority. But others are already plotting, hoping the king will step in and punish the lord for breaking their tenant contracts. Far from the chaos of the town square, a massive merchant vessel sits quietly docked at the harbor at sunset. Mori Paria enters a private cabin, looking completely exhausted after his stressful encounter with the new lord. A mysterious woman in a black hooded cloak is waiting for him in the shadows, her presence cold and imposing. She doesn't waste any time on pleasantries, immediately demanding to know if he's finally found the girl. When Mori has to admit he came up empty, she snaps at him, calling him utterly useless. He tries to defend his failure, explaining that Roman Riftarmer has thrown the entire town into a state of chaos. The woman's interest is piqued, as she asks exactly what this new noble has done to cause such an uproar. Mori vents his frustration, adjusting his collar as he details Roman's bizarre and radical new policies. From the safety of the ship's interior, their secretive conversation remains tucked away from any potential eavesdroppers. The hooded woman is repulsed by the order to take the children, calling Roman a total creep for his demands. But then she pauses, wondering if there might actually be a much deeper strategy behind his strange moves. She scoffs at the idea of someone preparing for a full-scale war in such a remote and pathetic place. Mori wonders if the Lord is planning some impossible feat of engineering to connect the town to the outside world. Despite his many gripes, he has to admit that Roman doesn't seem like a typical, lazy noble at all. The mysterious hooded woman stands up abruptly, deciding that she's done waiting for Mori to get results. Mori frantically grabs her arm in a panic, warning her that if she gets caught, she'll drag him down too. He points out that his merchant caravan is her only cover, but she doesn't seem to care about the personal risk. She knows the political landscape well, betting that the rift between church and state will keep her secrets safe. Mori shows her a glowing amethyst, noting that it hasn't reacted to anyone inside town yet. The purple crystal hums with a faint light as the woman stares into its facets, lost in thought. Mori reveals his plan to use Roman's control freak nature to help them flush out their target in the mountains. The woman is visibly shaken by the news, realizing just how dangerous a game Mori is playing with the Lord. She remembers the way Mori challenged Roman earlier that day, planting a seed of doubt about the mountain dwellers. Mori looks quite pleased with himself, believing that he's handled the situation with the noble perfectly. In a fit of rage, the woman grabs him by the collar, terrified for the safety of the girl they're supposed to find. She storms out of the room with a cold huff, completely done with Mori's meddling and incompetence. Her distrust of nobles is absolute, and she's determined to find the child herself before any noble can interfere. Mori watches her walk away, praying that her recklessness doesn't end up getting them both executed. As she walks down the corridor, dark red magical energy begins to leak from her clenched fist like fresh blood. The mysterious hooded woman fully taps into her dark power, magic swirling violently around her as she stands tall. She vows to find the target herself, determined to succeed before the Riftarmer family can lay a finger on her. Inside the ship's cabin, Mori Paria is left trembling as the mysterious hooded woman departs, leaving him with a chilling ultimatum. Trails of dark, blood-red magical energy streak across the night sky like ominous shooting stars. The dark energy settles over a humble house inside town, its roof silhouetted against the vast, starry night. Inside the home, a local family sleeps peacefully, unaware of the shadowy red energy materializing in their bedroom. The mysterious hooded woman looms over the bed, her voice a cold whisper as she demands to know the location of the Witch of Sage Town. Her crimson eyes glow with a frightening, otherworldly intensity as she stares down at the helpless, sleeping mortals. The mother's eyes snap open, her pupils dilating in pure, unadulterated terror at the sight of the intruder. She scrambles to protect her children, screaming for her husband to wake up as her worst nightmare becomes a reality. The hooded woman stands perfectly still, coldly informing the panicked mother that her husband has been put into a magical deep sleep. The intruder seizes the mother's chin, her dark aura suffocating the room as the woman begs for the safety of her child. The mysterious hooded woman's gaze is unwavering as she demands to know the whereabouts of Gwir. The next morning is a sharp contrast to the night's terrors, with Roman Riftarmer standing tall in a sun-drenched field while his knights spar nearby. More Mabas comes racing toward Roman, his face pale with exhaustion and his hands waving frantically in the air. He reports that a strange terror has gripped the town, with over a dozen households claiming they were visited by a demon in their dreams. On his knees and trembling, More Mabas whispers his fear that the townspeople are being targeted by a witch. Roman remains unfazed by the rumors, his mind instead considering the complex power struggle between the king, the nobles, and the church. He is well aware of the delicate hierarchy. While nobles answer to the king himself must submit to the church's divine authority. The church maintains its own formidable army of Templars and Inquisitors, making them a force that even the nobility is wary of. In the Black Iron Kingdom, the great dukes refuse to pay tithes, resulting in a system where the commoners are oppressed from all sides. Because Sage Town is so remote, the church has no presence there, making it a rare haven for natural-born spellcasters. While the church hunts witches relentlessly, the nobility often views them with a mix of indifference and secret contempt. More Mabas is tempted by the church's 10 gold reward for reporting a witch, a sum that could purchase 20 much-needed plow oxen. Roman scoffs at the suggestion, asking with a bored expression if this alleged witch has actually harmed any of his people. Dismissing the supernatural rumors for now, Roman turns his focus back to the fields, ordering his men to prepare for the spring wheat planting. Roman makes it clear he doesn't want to hear another word about the witch. His only focus right now is making sure his fields get planted correctly. He asks more Mabas why he's just standing there instead of getting things moving. They've got a lot of ground to cover. The new rule is simple. Everyone works until noon every day. No exceptions, and nobody goes home early. Roman orders all the children and the elderly to be brought out. The kids will be looked after by the peasant women as part of the new daily routine. He looks out over his new territory, ready to change how things are done. Origin Farm is finally starting to take shape under his leadership. Roman brings in 2 clerks, German and Hans. They've signed a long-term contract with a decent salary paid in advance. He gives them their first assignment: teach basic knowledge to the 300 children on the farm every single day. The curriculum starts with reading, writing, and arithmetic. He even gives them permission to use discipline if the kids start misbehaving. German isn't happy about it. He complains that he came here to be an administrator, not a teacher for a bunch of farmers' kids. Roman shifts his attention to the other clerk, asking if he feels the same way. Hans agrees, mentioning that his grandfather was a magistrate. To him, just taking censuses and teaching kids is beneath his station. Roman's expression goes cold as he asks if they're really going to disobey a direct order. Hans tries to stand his ground, threatening to file a lawsuit and claiming the king's law is above a local lord's authority. Roman's gaze narrows. He's not in the mood for a debate about legal technicalities. He reminds them that he's paying them way above market rates. Since they signed the contract, they're here to do what he says, not talk about their rights. He tells them to stop overestimating his patience. If they keep questioning him, he'll just execute them right where they stand. Terrified, the two clerks immediately back down and agree to follow his orders. With that settled, Roman heads out for his noon inspection, leaving the children's education in their hands. He walks out of the manor, ready to check on the rest of the operation. Down at the fields, the workers are lining up for their midday porridge. More Mabas reports they've gathered 10 tons of manure, but Roman tells him they need at least 100 tons just to get started. A simple bowl of wheat porridge is served, the same meal every worker gets. One worker is literally trembling in fear, worried the Lord might decide to execute them all as soon as they finish eating. But to everyone's surprise, Roman grabs a bowl and starts eating the same humble food as everyone else. More Mabas is baffled. He can't understand why a noble would eat like a peasant, especially right next to a massive dung heap. Roman tells him to quit starring and finish his meal. He even suggests they just eat while they work to save time. More Mabas looks like he'd rather die than eat while dealing with a pile of manure. 2 hours later, Roman explains that the stench will go away in a couple of weeks as the waste decomposes into fertilizer. He announces that from now on, anyone who helps process the manure will be rewarded with 2 extra pounds of wheat. More Mabas agrees, realizing that the people will work even harder with a tangible reward like that. Roman mounts his horse, telling More Mabas to keep teaching the composting process while he heads to the blacksmith. More Mabas watches him ride off, amazed by how hands-on the new lord is. He knows if he slacks off now, he'll end up in the pigsty for sure. Roman arrives at the blacksmith's forge on the edge of town. He's met by Lars, the local blacksmith, who admits he usually just handles basic tool repairs for the town. Roman asks him how business has been going lately. Lars says things are tough. Iron is expensive and the town is too poor for the farmers to afford new tools. He tells Roman he only has about 200 pounds of iron ingots left in his workshop. The blacksmith looks nervous, wondering if the Lord is about to seize his most valuable assets. But Roman just reaches into his coat to pull something out. He presents a blueprint for a new iron plow and asks Lars exactly how much metal it will take to build it. Lars estimates it'll take about 30 pounds of iron, though they'll also need a carpenter to handle the wheel. Roman tells Lars to keep the material used to a minimum and get it forged quickly. He's footing the entire bill, so cost isn't an issue. Lars agrees to only charge for the materials, but he's clearly nervous. He mentions the church's stance that their current tools are gifts from the gods that should never be altered. Roman doesn't have time for religious taboos. He tells the blacksmith that if the gods have a problem with his new design, they can come tell him to his face. He emphasizes that the new plow is absolutely essential for the farm. Lars nods and heads out immediately to find a carpenter to help with the construction. As Lars leaves, Roman reflects on the state of this world. They have the skill to forge iron, yet they're still struggling with inefficient light plows in this heavy soil. It just doesn't make sense to him. He realizes that there's a massive gap in technology here. This is just the beginning of what he's going to have to discover and fix in this world. Town has its own blacksmith shop, but they're still heavily dependent on imported iron to get anything done. Lars, the blacksmith, explains that while the current iron ingots are low quality, they'll work for basic farm tools. Roman Riftarmer orders him to start manufacturing heavy plows immediately, promising a silver coin reward for every worker who helps finish the job. Lars hesitates, pointing out they simply don't have enough iron in stock. Roman tells him to just melt down the light plows to make up the difference. Even with the light plows melted down, they'll still be short on material. Roman considers a drastic move, melting down the knight's gear just to get the fields ready. Lars mentions a merchant ship at the pier that's currently carrying high-quality iron blocks. Roman doesn't miss a beat and tells him to go buy them right now. Down at the Town pier, a massive merchant vessel is docked. Mori Paria, the merchant in charge, is breaking a sweat, worried the Lord might have caught on to his secret dealings with the local witches. Roman and Lars approach him, wasting no time on pleasantries. He asks if there's any iron for sale. Mori quotes him 15 gold coins for 450 pounds of high-quality ingots. Mori breathes a sigh of relief when he realizes it's just a simple business transaction. Roman reaches into his vest to pull out his payment. He tosses a large ruby into the merchant's hand, explaining it's worth exactly 15 gold. Mori stares at the gem in disbelief. Real rubies like this are usually kept as family heirlooms by high-ranking nobles. He's stunned that a useless noble would just carry something so valuable around. Sensing an opportunity to get on Roman's good side, Mori tries to give the ruby back, offering the iron for free to secure a friendship. Roman just takes the gem back and shakes his head. He tells the merchant he doesn't take favors for nothing, promising to return the kindness in the future. On top of the iron, Roman orders 100 oxen to be shipped to town for 60 gold coins. Mori admits he can't get that many oxen, but he can provide 50 draft horses or 100 oxen at a much higher price point. Roman agrees to the deal, and they shake on it. Night falls over the forge, but the work is just starting. Roman is right there in the thick of it, helping Lars and the other smiths move the heavy iron blocks. Sweating and exhausted, Roman barks at everyone to stay focused and keep working. Hours later, the workshop is still glowing with the heat of the forge. Roman examines a massive redwood bow, a family treasure gifted to him by his grandfather. He compares its piercing power to a sniper rifle, though he knows it's still far behind modern tech. He calls for his knights, Aaron and Saruman, to get ready for a trip into the mountains. More Mabas looks on, confused by the sudden mobilization. Mounted up and armed with his great bow, Roman orders Mabas to call the rest of the town guards. The administrator is frantic, asking why he wasn't given any prior notice about this expedition. Roman gives him a sharp look, making it clear he doesn't need permission to move on his own land. When Mabas warns him about the dangerous mountain folk, Roman tells him he's coming along too. The poor guy can only manage a terrified squeak in response. The small cavalry unit heads deep into the dense woods. Mabas continues his nervous rambling, explaining that these mountains have been a hideout for thieves and deserters since his father's time. He warns that the fugitives living here are much more dangerous than any wild animal. Suddenly, Roman's attention is fixed on something ahead. He raises a hand to signal a full stop, silencing the group. He spots his target and realizes this must be the apostle the system gave him. Roman Riftarmer confronts a group of men in the forest. Aaron is by his side, hand on his sword. Saruman stands alert in the back. Roman asks them directly if they intend to stand against their lord. A voice from the trees replies that they have no lord. Roman gives a cold smirk, telling them that's about to change. He warns them that they have no chance against a campaign knight. He offers to spare them if they come out and kneel. From behind the brush, several men watch the knights nervously, realizing they're outmatched. Dota, wearing his signature feathered hat, steps out from the shadows. He says they just want to survive and offers their hunted game as a peace offering. Roman isn't interested in food. He tells Dota that if he wants to live, he needs to pledge his loyalty instead. Dota stays quiet, his eyes hidden by the brim of his hat as he considers the offer. Roman looms over him, declaring that in this land, everything belongs to him. He orders his apostle to state his name. The man identifies himself as Dodanai. A system window confirms he's a 2-star tracker with the talent Keen Eye. Roman's eyes glow with intensity as he tells Dota to lead the way to the other mountain dwellers. Their fate depends on their next move. The scene shifts to Shasta, a mysterious woman in a black cloak. She ties a small bundle of leaves to a tree branch. She's following a legend that says hanging a wish like this will make a savior appear. She desperately hopes it's true. Suddenly, she spots a young girl watching from the distance. It's Gwen, looking frail and lost. Gwen tentatively reaches up toward the branch where Shasta hung her wish. The girl's small hand reaches out and plucks the bundle of leaves. Gwen holds it tight to her chest, her expression filled with a mix of fear and curiosity. Scared by the stranger, Gwen turns tail and bolts into the forest. Shasta calls out after her, telling Gwen to wait. Gwen trips in her haste, sending the leaves scattering onto the grass. She stands there trembling, her eyes wide as she realizes she's been caught. Shasta catches up but keeps her distance, noticing how terrified the child is. Gwen asks if she's there to capture her. Shasta gives a gentle smile and introduces herself, explaining that they're both witches and should stick together. Gwen breaks down in tears, frantically denying that she's a witch. Shasta's expression turns solemn. She asks the girl if she's really going to spend her life denying her own power. Sobbing, Gwen insists she doesn't have evil powers and isn't possessed by any devil. Shasta pulls her into a warm hug, promising her a life with warm beds and plenty of food so she won't have to suffer anymore. Back with the group, Roman explains that he doesn't need force to control them. He can just block their supplies and starve them out. Realizing the Lord has them cornered, Dota and the other hunters finally lower their heads in surrender. Roman issues a decree. Every hunter must leave their mountain strongholds within a month and relocate to Sage Town. He then turns to Dota and asks him to spill everything he knows about the other bandits hiding in the mountains. Dota starts with laying Dr. Garin, an old man with mysterious origins but unmatched medical skills. Next is Jet, a battlefield deserter who fled the war and went into hiding in this remote area. Dota's report continues as the knights listen intently. He mentions Dick, a traitorous knight who is currently wanted for slaughtering nobles. Finally, there's the master thief Borg, a man with a fierce reputation for robbing the rich. Dota warns Roman that Borg is extremely dangerous, and that making contact with him is a death wish. A deafening roar echoes through the woods, causing Roman's horse to rear up in panic. Dota looks terrified, identifying the sound as a powerful magical beast. He asks Roman if he still plans on heading deeper into the mountains. Unfazed, Roman asks if there are any other notable outlaws besides the ones already mentioned. Dota mentions one last name, the Witch of Misfortune, Gwen. A gloved hand knocks firmly on a wooden door. Inside the rustic cabin, Dick's attention is drawn to the sudden noise. Outside, Borg stands before Dick's remote mountain shack, the surrounding forest quiet. Dick pulls the door ajar and peers out, asking coldly what brought Borg to his doorstep. Borg's expression is frantic as he warns that Roman, the evil dragon, won't spare them. He tries to appeal to Dick's sense of morality regarding Gwen. Borg's eyes widen with a manic crimson glow as he rants about protecting their land and killing the robber nobles. Dick remains unimpressed, his eyes closed as he tells Borg that his madness will only result in everyone's death. Borg looks worried, admitting that Jet won't support him and pleading for Dick's help. Dick is resolute, his face illuminated by a cold light as he tells Borg to leave, refusing any alliance. Borg looms over him, shouting that they both have the Lord's blood on their hands and promising to distribute Roman's treasure to the poor. Dick doesn't back down, questioning Borg's true motivations and bringing up the shadows in his heart, including his dark past. Borg snaps, slamming his hand against the doorframe. He denies being mad, wishing only for the magical beasts to rise up and kill the nobles. Dick warns him of the consequences. Killing a Riftarmer scion would bring the wrath of the 3 Grand Dukes upon them all. Borg responds with a terrifying, hollow laughter, his face shrouded in shadow. A close-up of Borg's face reveals a gaze filled with deep-seated resentment and simmering rage. Meanwhile, in a sun-drenched clearing of the forest, the peace is undisturbed. Shasta holds Gwen in a gentle embrace against the trunk of a large tree, comforting the sobbing child. Shasta assures Gwen that she isn't evil. Her unique constitution is simply a form of power that she will help her master. Shasta looks into Gwen's eyes, telling her that she can only be a normal person when surrounded by her fellow witches. Gwen is hesitant, her eyes filled with tears as she asks if she can simply stay where she is. Gwen's voice trembles as she speaks of her fear of the church, which she believes will burn her and her family. Shasta listens with a somber expression, realizing the depth of the child's trauma. Shasta reaches out a hand toward the girl, insisting that leaving the mountain is the right choice for her future. Tears stream down Gwen's face, the bandaged side of her head a stark reminder of her past suffering. Gwen cries out, worrying about leaving behind those she considers family: Dick, Jet, Garin, and even Borg. Her words are cut short as a thunderous roar suddenly echoes across the mountain range. Shasta's eyes widen in alarm as she looks toward the source of the sound. Elsewhere, Garin is startled from his prayers over a pile of silver coins as the ground begins to shake. Roman Riftarmer has arrived at Garin's residence, accompanied by Saruman, Dota, and more mobbas. Roman gets straight to the point, acknowledging Garin's past and offering him a position, but Garin remains committed to his faith. Roman notes that resignation isn't an option Garin is willing to take. Garin maintains his composure, stating that while he left the church, his faith remains unbroken. Roman counters with a cynical remark. Garin pleads with Roman to let him stay in peace, but Roman's offer is not a mere suggestion. Roman's crimson eyes narrowed as he delivered a final ultimatum to the old man, warning him that he was squandering a rare, hard-to-come-by opportunity. Back outside, the forest is plunged into chaos. A massive shadow looms among the trees while a flock of crows scatters in panic. More mobbas rushes toward Roman, sweat beading on his forehead as he points frantically toward the giant magical beast. Roman remains perfectly calm, standing tall as a surge of energy radiates from him. He asks why everyone is panicking. He draws his sword and orders his men to form a defensive line, preparing for the inevitable clash. A colossal brown bear with glowing red eyes bursts from the brush, letting out a bone-chilling roar. The beast charges into the front line, its sheer size causing immediate devastation as it tosses men aside like ragdoll. Eren manages to intercept the bear's heavy claw with his shield, calling out to Saruman to strike while the creature is occupied. The bear's fury is unmatched as it roars again, its powerful strikes sending weapons and soldiers flying through the air. One of Roman's soldiers is thrown through the air, caught in the wake of the bear's immense power. Roman Riftarmer watches the chaos with a cold, analytical gaze, his crimson eyes glowing with intensity. The giant brown bear roars in fury as an arrow whizzes past its head, its red eyes fixed on its prey. A soldier fires another shot from below as a second arrow pierces the bear's thick hide, trailing a plume of white smoke. The beast's jaws drip with saliva, its breath visible in the cold air as it prepares for another charge. With a deafening roar, the magical bear's rage reaches its peak, shaking the very ground with its sound. A stern-faced captain among Roman's guard points forward, commanding his archers to let loose a volley of arrows. Despite the hail of arrows, the bear remains unfazed, the projectiles failing to penetrate its dense fur as Saruman prepares to leap into the fray. Roman narrows his eyes, his focus intensifying as he prepares to personally intervene in the battle. Drawing a powerful longbow, Roman fires a single, devastating shot that cuts through the air with incredible speed. The arrow finds its mark, exploding against the bear's chest in a spray of blood and light, stunning the massive creature. Seizing the opening, Saruman and Eren leap onto the beast together, their spears aimed true at its vulnerable neck. After the bear falls, Eren kneels beside the carcass, his blade ready to extract the valuable components from the magical beast. Eren presents the bear's heart and gallbladder to Roman, confirming their successful acquisition of the rare ingredients. Dota crouches near the bear's head, his expression grim as he notices a strange scent lingering on the beast. Dota informs Roman that the bear was driven into a frenzy by beast lure grass, a tactic famously used by the great bandit Borg. A dark, confident smile plays across Roman's lips as he declares that none of the bandits will escape his judgment. Deep in the forest, the mysterious hooded woman leads Gwen away, wondering why the mountain's magical beasts have suddenly gone berserk. Suddenly, a massive stag with glowing antlers lunges from the thicket, its eyes wild with unnatural rage as the woman shouts a warning. The woman remains composed, her hand moving toward her waist in a blur of motion as the beast closes in. With a swift, fluid strike, she draws her blade and slashes through the stag, a red arc of energy marking the lethal blow. She urgently tells Gwen to run as she prepares for further threats, her movements precise and deadly. Gwen stops, tears streaming down her face as she tells the woman to stay away, believing herself to be a harbinger of misfortune. The woman reaches out and gently touches Gwen's chin, reassuring the terrified child that this is not her fault and promising that her sisters will help her. The witch pulls Gwen into a tight embrace, whispering that if they stay here any longer, the girl is as good as dead. She can't help but wonder if the child's curse has already grown powerful enough to drive every beast in the forest into a violent frenzy. Shasta urges her to come along to the witch forest, promising that her sisters there can provide the help she needs. Terrified and confused, Gwen cries through her bandages, asking why this stranger is so insistent on taking her away. The witch's gaze sharpens. She makes it clear that she's willing to use force if that's what it takes to get the girl to comply. A sudden rustle in the nearby bushes catches her off guard. Eren steps out from the trees, raising his massive shield to block her path. Deep in the forest, the silence is heavy. An archer tracks their target through the brush, while Saruman keeps watch from a distance. The red-haired knight isn't worried, confident that their opponent is a high-ranking warrior who will finally give them a worthy challenge. Somewhere nearby, Borg has completely lost his mind, screaming about slaying the evil dragon to bring peace to the world. Back in the clearing, Eren stands firm, repeating his lord's command that no one is allowed to leave. Shasta draws her blade with a sneer, mocking the low-ranking knight for thinking he can actually stop her. Eren doesn't back down, stating that he only answers to Roman's commands. He stares her down with absolute determination. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as a new presence enters the fray. The witch freezes, feeling a sudden, overwhelming pressure weighing down on her. Roman Riftarmer watches from above, casually drawing back his bow. He asks the witch if she's truly prepared to test her luck against his aim. Standing tall on the ridge, Roman mocks her for thinking she can just walk into his territory and kidnap one of his people. He makes it clear, everything on this land is his property, and taking that girl is the same as stealing from him. Shasta looks up at him, shocked that a mere noble would dare to claim a witch as one of his subjects. Roman isn't interested in negotiating. He just wants her to know exactly who's in charge. With a sudden, explosive movement, he leaps from the high ground. He lands with a heavy thud, the impact sending a shockwave through the dirt. He walks past them like he's already settled the matter, repeating that his rules are absolute. Roman looks back with those cold red eyes, shutting down any further debate. A bone-chilling howl suddenly rips through the air, echoing through the trees. Both Roman and Shasta snap their attention toward the source of the noise. A monster bursts through the brush, moving with terrifying speed. Birds scatter from the distant peaks as a massive roar rolls across the valley. Shasta realizes the danger they're in. It's not just a single beast, but a whole pack of magical wolves. She tightens her grip on Gwen, knowing they're about to be completely surrounded. The witch tries to order him out of her way, but Roman doesn't move an inch. His eyes glow with a deadly light as he warns her that if she tries to abandon them, he'll kill the girl himself. He's calling her bluff, knowing she can't possibly protect a child while fighting off a hungry pack. Shasta is backed into a corner. Either they both suffer heavy losses, or they work together to slaughter the beasts. She grits her teeth in fury, but eventually realizes he's right, agreeing to the truce for now. Roman immediately takes control, ordering Aaron to get Gwen to safety while he prepares to clear the path. The soldiers tighten their formations, knowing they're in for a fight to the death. Red eyes gleam in the dark as the first wave of wolves charges out of the shadows. One of the soldiers breaks out in a cold sweat as the crushing pressure of the pack's intent sets in. Roman Riftarmer remains completely unfazed, his steady gaze fixed on the approaching wall of fur and fangs. He shouts a final command to the line, warning them that anyone who retreats will be executed. Slaughtering the beasts is their only way out. The pack of red-eyed wolves doesn't hesitate for a second, charging forward with primal magical hunger. Roman takes his position on the ridge, ordering his archers and spearmen to immediately move for support from the flanks. He draws back his bow, the air around the arrow beginning to hum with concentrated power. A single shot rips through the air, creating a vacuum that drags the surrounding wind into a localized whirlwind. The arrow finds its mark, sending a wolf into a pained howl as it's thrown back into its own pack. More beasts fall under the relentless hail of projectiles, but they just keep coming. Roman doesn't let up, his focus absolute as he tracks the next incoming target. One of the wolves manages to break through the formation, lunging directly at the noble lord's throat. Shasta is faster, intercepting the beast and knocking it aside before it can sink its fangs in. She delivers a crushing kick that sends the monster flying back into the undergrowth. The witch stays low, keeping her eyes on the surrounding shadows while Roman covers her from the ridge. A wolf manages to close the distance, but Roman catches it midair by the throat with one hand. He stares the beast down with eyes colder than any forest predator. The creature snaps its jaws in a desperate attempt to sink its teeth into him, but it's too late. Without a single word, Roman drives an arrow through its neck, blood spraying across the forest floor. Shasta joins the slaughter, her movements a blur as she carves through the remaining pack members. She moves with a lethal grace, leaving a trail of dead wolves behind her. Nearby, a soldier struggles to keep a wolf's teeth away from his face, while Roman prepares another shot. The Lord scoffs at the persistent beasts, calling them nothing more than a bunch of useless trash. He suddenly realizes something is wrong. The alpha of the pack hasn't shown its face yet. Aaron lunges forward with his shield, shouting for Roman to watch out as a wolf leaps from a blind spot. In the aftermath, Gwen trembles as she hides behind the witch, clearly overwhelmed by the violence she just witnessed. The young girl breaks down into tears, apologizing for being a burden and begging to just go home. Once the forest finally goes quiet, Roman tells Shasta that it seems he's come out on top. He catches her off guard by offering to swear a noble covenant to protect the girl from all future persecution. Shasta is stunned. Breaking such a pledge means losing everything, and she can't believe a noble would risk that for a witch. She looks at him like he's lost his mind, wondering which one of them is truly the crazy one. Roman doesn't blink, swearing in the name of Riftarmer that Gwen will face no persecution within his lands. He pledges to provide unconditional protection for life, as long as she stays loyal and doesn't betray him. Shasta admits that if he had been this reasonable from the start, she might not have fought him for the girl. Roman takes it a step further, inviting the witch herself to stay and work for him to hide from the church's pursuers. She scoffs, telling him that he definitely thinks too highly of his own influence for a mere noble. Roman just watches her go, curious about her refusal but not particularly bothered. As she walks away, she tells him he better take good care of Gwen or she won't forgive him. He asks for her name. She looks back with a faint smirk and introduces herself as Shasta, the Night Witch. The sun begins to set over the mountains, finally bringing a cold end to the afternoon's chaos. Roman takes a moment to rest and clean his bow, while Aaron delivers the heavy casualty report. As he listens, his thoughts drift back to Gwen and how she's handling everything. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, two people are running as fast as they can, trying to put distance between themselves and the terror. Dota kneels on the damp earth, his fingers tracing a set of fresh tracks as he looks ahead with a sharp, determined grin. Saruman's ears twitch at a sudden, aggressive rustle in the dense foliage behind them, his hand instinctively moving toward his blade. Suddenly, a man in a red vest bursts from the bushes with a heavy battle axe raised high, screaming about an evil dragon and demanding a duel. Saruman is barely fast enough to draw his sword, the impact of the heavy axe sending a shower of sparks flying into the air. The attacker, Borg, doesn't let up for a second, swinging his massive weapon with wild, reckless abandon. The sounds of clashing steel echo through the woods as Saruman struggles to parry the brute's relentless and heavy strikes. A short distance away, Roman Riftarmer stops in his tracks as he hears the unmistakable sounds of combat breaking out nearby. Without hesitation, Roman calls for his men to follow him as they sprint through the trees toward the source of the noise. Borg continues his assault on Saruman, his eyes wide with a manic intensity that borders on complete madness. He catches sight of Roman's group arriving, and his face contorts in rage, immediately identifying the noble as his target. Borg turns his attention toward the newcomers, his grip tightening on his axe as he prepares to face the larger group. Roman doesn't waste time with words, drawing his bow and taking aim at the rampaging bandit in an instant. A single arrow whistles through the air, perfectly aimed and imbued with enough force to shatter wood. The arrow whizzed past the bulky man's face, cleanly slicing off a chunk of his hair and sending a chill straight down his spine. Borg snarls, his pride wounded, and vows to use his battle axe to slay the evil dragon standing before him. Roman remains perfectly calm, questioning why this stranger is so intent on calling him a dragon and seeking a duel. Borg's eyes burn with a strange conviction as he yells that while Roman lacks claws and wings, he still rules over the land like a monster. He shouts that the fear Roman instills in the hearts of others is proof enough that he is more like a dragon than any man. Saruman leans in to whisper to Roman, explaining that their attacker likely has the blood of the savage northern ice people. He notes that they worship strength above all else and face death without fear, which is why pirates are so common among them. Saruman recounts the history of these people, mentioning a heavy defeat they suffered from the great conqueror over a century ago. He explains that legends of land-dwelling dragons are tied to the first Riftarmer Duke, who famously pierced a red dragon's scales. Ever since that legendary battle, the dragon race has all but vanished from the land, leaving only myths in their wake. However, the northern ice people still believe in their existence and see Roman's bloodline as the reincarnation of that ancient threat. Roman sighs, telling Borg that standing on the shore while others sink into the swamp won't save anyone. He explains that the harder people like Borg pull, the deeper they and those they try to help will sink into human nature's curse. Infuriated by Roman's philosophical dismissal, Borg swears he will break the curse by using the noble's own corpse. Roman's expression hardens as he accepts the challenge, his loyal knight Aaron stepping up to support his lord. He calls for his shield and sword, ready to show this self-proclaimed dragon slayer the true power of his lineage. A sudden, chilling blue light erupts around Borg as he activates a powerful ability, transporting them into a spectral vision. They find themselves on the deck of a ghostly warship, Borg lunging through the air with his axe held high. Roman catches the heavy blow on his shield, the impact creating a shockwave that rattles the spectral timbers of the ship. The two clash amidst a storm of blue sparks, their duel raging across the deck of the phantom vessel. Borg grinds his teeth, putting every ounce of his remaining strength into a desperate attempt to break Roman's guard. Roman waits for the perfect opening, his movements precise and economical compared to Borg's wild, manic swings. He delivers a powerful counterstrike that knocks Borg off balance, his sword gleaming brightly in the spectral light. With a well-placed kick, Roman sends the bandit flying over the railing of the illusionary ship and into the darkness. Borg plunges into the dark, churning waters of his own mind's creation, his defiant cries echoing as he falls. He sinks into the depths, still clinging to his fanatical dream of being the one to finally slay the evil dragon. As his consciousness finally fades, a strange, peaceful look settles over Borg's face and his eyes close for the last time. Back in the city, Shasta stands in a quiet stone courtyard, reporting her recent meeting to an associate. She speaks with Mori Paria, who listens with interest as she suggests that Roman Riftarmer might be an ally worth visiting in the future. Mori Paria adjusts his gold monocle, his expression cool and calculating as he prepares to depart from the northern port. The group makes their way toward a majestic, multi-masted ship that waits patiently at the edge of the stone pier. Soon the vessel is cutting through the open sea, its sails full of wind as it leaves the northern coast far behind. On the main deck, Mori questions Shasta about the mission's outcome, while a massive eagle descends from the sky. The eagle speaks with a human voice, nodding that the prophet witch has seen Gwen's immense spiritual potential. Shasta remains unmoved, arguing that Gwen's powers are tied to destiny and luck, making her unsuitable for the brutality of battle. The beastly creature warns that every high-level witch is essential for the success of their upcoming god-slaying operation. Shasta looks out over the railing, maintaining that Gwen is simply too weak and helpless to ever become a competent warrior. The eagle, known as the Beast Witch, narrows its eyes, hoping that Shasta isn't being clouded by misplaced sympathy. Shasta turns back, her gaze sharp as she questions why the Beast Witch has come to find her instead of attending to more important tasks. She mentions that the Prophet Witch sensed a new sister, awakening with a spiritual aura unlike anything ever seen before. The Beast Witch emphasizes that such power would make Gwen the perfect backbone for their grand, dark designs. The bird then reveals that the church has also sensed Gwen's awakening and has already begun to move against them. It notes that a powerful Dawn Knight named Ketan and 50 demon hunters have been dispatched to secure the girl for the church. With a commanding tone, the Beast Witch insists that they must be the ones to claim Gwen, as she is vital to their operation. Without a final word, Shasta turns away, her boots clicking sharply against the wooden planks of the deck. Moments later, she is soaring high above the clouds, perched firmly on the back of the magnificent giant eagle. From a great distance, the silhouette of the departing duo is captured perfectly within the lens of a telescope. Roman Riftarmer lowers the spyglass, his mind filled with thoughts of the witches, merchants, and the power of the church. He stands before the imposing spires of the town, declaring his radical intent to reshape the land regardless of the cost. His crimson eyes burn with a fierce, uncompromising light as he vows to change the very era they live in. 10 days later, Segtown is transformed, with Origin Manor thriving under Roman's confident leadership. Inside the manor, a warm and lavish feast is shared between Roman and his most trusted companions. As he enjoys a simple meal, Roman turns to Gwen and gently asks about her age, knowing that staying at the manor is the safest choice for her. Gwen stares at the feast, stomach growling. She can't believe all this food is actually meant for her. Roman calls her name, breaking her trance. She looks up, still a little dazed. The sudden attention makes her jump, nearly falling off her seat. She quickly settles back down, her eye wide with surprise. Roman tells her to be careful and asks how old she is. She starts counting on her fingers, unsure if she's 10 or 11 years old. He asks if she knows who he is, and she quietly calls him her Lord Master. Roman makes it clear she's his personal attendant now, and that means she eats exactly what he eats. That's all the permission she needs. She starts stuffing her face with bread as fast as she can. The tutor grumbles about her total lack of manners, but Roman just shrugs it off. He knows she's just been starving for too long, and it was hard enough getting her away from that witch. The man can only sigh at his lord's new project. 10 days later, the town is finally starting to look alive with everyone out and working the streets. Roman takes a stroll through the territory, with Gwen following behind. The girl stays a few steps back, still adjusting to her new life. Moore stops them to introduce Had and Simon Nova, Gwen's parents. Instead of a happy reunion, they drop to their knees and beg for mercy, claiming their own daughter is a devil they don't even know. Gwen looks away, used to being treated like a curse by everyone. Roman shuts them down instantly. He tells them Gwen is his attendant now, and seeing her is the same as seeing him. The father looks stunned, mentioning a witch came looking for them just the other day. Roman isn't interested in their excuses or their fear. He tells them to keep their mouths shut and go back to whatever they were doing. The couple doesn't need to be told twice. They scurry off as fast as their legs can carry them. Gwen looks up at him, confused. She asks why he'd want her around if she really is a bringer of misfortune. Roman doesn't see it that way. To him, the fact that she survived alone in the mountains for years proves she has the power of luck. A tiny smile finally touches her face. He tells her to keep moving. They have things to do at the blacksmith shop. Inside the forge, the air is thick with heat, and the rhythmic ring of hammers hitting steel as the workers stay busy. Roman heads straight to the forge to visit Rax, ordering him to start pumping out heavy-duty plows as fast as possible. He knows hard work requires good fuel, so he orders the blacksmith's meat rations to be doubled immediately with wild boar meat. Roman then tells his advisor to handle the logistics of distributing the meat from the recent hunt. He wants the oxen, and the first batch of plows ready for a field test that same afternoon. Out in the territory, the long, dry ridges of the farmland are waiting for a transformation. The local farmers are stunned to see their lord arriving at the fields with elite knights and a little girl in tow. Saruman, the red-haired knight, is already sensing trouble, betting that Roman is about to start plowing himself. The blonde knight doesn't take the bet. It's pretty obvious Roman didn't come out here just to watch. Saruman is just annoyed that he can't even find a way to make a boring day interesting with a wager. The empty plains stretch out, a blank canvas for Roman's ambitious plans. Roman hops off his horse and gets right down in the dirt to check the quality of the soil. He's pleased with the fertility and decides this is the perfect spot to kick off the new era. A plow blade bites deep into the earth as the work finally begins. Roman shocks everyone by grabbing a plow and sprinting down the field, pushing it with superhuman speed. He gives his knights their instructions, mapping out exactly how much land they need to cover. Saruman is absolutely mortified, unable to believe a dignified warring knight like him is being reduced to farm labor. Roman is already far in the distance, waving at them to hurry up while Gwen watches with wide eyes. The blonde knight just tells Saruman to stop mumbling and accept that the Lord has his reasons. Saruman can only stand there in silent disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. Roman lays down the law. If the job isn't finished by morning, nobody is getting any lunch. Hunger is a powerful motivator, and Saruman realizes he's going to have to work for his next meal. He thinks about how even the greatest warriors lose their strength when they're starving for too long. He complains that life under other lords involved feasts and white bread, not manual labor in the mud. Despite all the grumbling, the knights hook up the oxen and start tilling the field. Little Gwen doesn't want to be left out and asks Roman what she can do to help. Roman tells her to just stay put and stay safe. He didn't bring her out here for labor. He promises her that better days are coming once she gets some proper nutrition back in her system. Roman continues his lightning-fast plowing, seeing system notifications pop up for every meter he clears. He finally pauses to wipe the sweat from his brow after clearing an incredible amount of ground. He calls for a lunch break, much to the relief of his exhausted knights. Saruman is absolutely drained and asks if they really have to keep going after they eat. Roman checks the final tally. He's managed to plow over 1,300 meters single-handedly. He reiterates that they'll be back at it right after they finish their meal. Saruman can't hide his despair at the thought of doing another round of grueling manual labor. Later, Roman retreats to his study to review the financial state of Sige Town with his advisor. He opens the ledger, prepared to see the true state of his territory's economy. A quick scan of the pages reveals that the town's records are a complete disaster. Roman points out that the finances are a total mess, and his advisor couldn't agree more. He focuses on the agricultural officer, Moore, realizing the guy is either incompetent or intentionally corrupt. It turns out Moore was intentionally exploiting the farmers, forcing them to overwork just to line his own pockets. The steward was disgusted to find that this official routinely lent barley to starving farmers, just to trap them in a perpetual cycle of debt. Roman tells his advisor to look closely at the evidence, realizing he has a major corruption problem to solve. Roman pores over the records, noting a case where a family lent 100 gin of rye and was forced to return 150 after the harvest, plus another 100 next year. He calls it straight-up usury and orders his advisor to go fetch the officer in charge, Moore, immediately. A moment later, the advisor returns with the man responsible for the mess. Moore Mabas, the agricultural officer, arrives and starts bowing, trying to hide his fear with a humble act. Roman isn't playing along. He tells Moore that since he's reclaimed the land, all the grain debts the farmers owe are wiped clean. He warns the officer to stop being so petty and calculating, and a terrified Moore quickly promises to fall in line. Roman officially appoints Seth as the new manager for the town's finances, replacing the old, corrupt system. The advisor immediately raises a red flag. They're looking at total bankruptcy by the time winter rolls around. He points out that the salaries for guards and stewards are massive, costing the treasury thousands of gin of wheat every year. Since Roman overturned the old production system, they won't have any funds to pay those salaries by winter. He worries they won't even be able to cover the pay for the elite knights, Aaron and Green, or even himself. On top of that, the hearing fees for craftsmen like Lax and Vitch are putting even more strain on their dwindling resources. The advisor is clearly panicked, begging Roman to consider the situation carefully and not take the numbers lightly. Roman stays perfectly calm, telling the man not to be so anxious about the financial reports. He wants to know why the steward's salaries are so high in the first place, asking if they're all relatives of the official. He orders their benefits to be slashed immediately. No more silver coins, wheat, or meat for the stewards. As for the tax exemptions, Roman decides to leave them as they are for now, daring anyone to object. Moore is sweating profusely, realizing that the official's relatives are going to be absolutely furious about the cuts. He doesn't dare speak up, simply nodding along as he tries to keep himself from shaking. Roman tells him that if anyone has a complaint, they can come find him personally. Moore bows deeply, promising to obey. Roman thinks about how the Bath family has been like parasites, clinging to the Riftarmer name for their own gain. He knows that without a lord to grant them power, they'd be nothing more than commoners, and it's time they remembered that. Changing the subject, Roman asks about the guards who were killed in the fighting yesterday. Moore reports that the families of the fallen and severely injured have been compensated with silver and grain as ordered. He adds that even those with light injuries received some wheat, and the townspeople are already talking about the Lord's kindness. Roman orders all active guards to be gathered up, so Aaron can train them for 3 hours every single day. He remembers the mess of a fight from the day before, and knows their military proficiency is dangerously low. While he can cover the costs of casualties for now, he knows the town will eventually run out of people if they don't get better at fighting. Without proper training, Segtown is doomed to a slow death by attrition. He turns to Aaron and asks if he can handle the task. The blonde knight is surprised, but immediately agrees to carry out the orders. Roman then announces that every guard will now receive a monthly salary of copper, wheat, and meat. The official's eyes widened in shock, questioning why they'd bother paying a regular salary at all, let alone how low the pay was. He's even more shocked by the idea of paying them every single month. Moore explains that guards are traditionally conscripts who only get paid during wartime, but Roman is changing the rules. Roman clarifies that the pay is issued every month, but only for those who meet his strict standards. He plans to reward high performance and wants to incorporate the local hunters into the official guard ranks. He appoints Doda as the new captain of the guards and wants him recalled from the mountains immediately. The advisor reminds him that while these are great moves, the winter bankruptcy issue is still looming over them. Roman is unbothered, promising to have the entire problem solved before spring even ends. The advisor looks skeptical, but he bows and accepts the challenge. He then shifts focus to Roman's appearance, pointing out the mud on his trousers and his disheveled look. He starts fixing Roman's collar and buttons, lecturing him on the importance of maintaining an elegant appearance as a lord. Roman's advisor, acting more like a protective father than a tutor, continues to fuss over his attire, much to Roman's internal amusement. Nearby, a group of townspeople watch from a distance, their voices low as they whisper about their new lord's unusual behavior. Roman takes to the fields himself, gripping the handles of a massive, heavy-duty plow pulled by a pair of sturdy oxen. The farmers watch in awe as the deep blade effortlessly turns over the rich black soil, unearthing heavy stones and thick tree roots that would have broken a standard plow. "Now follow my lead and plow all the land I've marked out," Roman commands, pointing across the wide expanse of the valley. He explains to the gathered men that while the heavy plow is slower and requires more power, its efficiency in opening up the flat ground is unmatched. Sitting for a brief moment of rest, Roman calculates the logistics, knowing it will take another week to finish forging the 40 plows they need. He's determined to complete the deep plowing of the 330-acre plot within 13 days, a feat that would normally be impossible. Moore approaches with a humble smile, offering Roman a tray with a steaming cup of hot tea and some simple snacks. Roman accepts the gesture with a nod of thanks, though Seth insists that serving his lord is merely his duty. As he sips the tea, Roman mentally reviews the town's resources, noting that of the 1,200 residents, only about 700 are available for this intensive labor. He knows that alongside plowing, gathering manure for composting is a critical task that must be finished in the next 3 days. Deep plowing is just the start. Sowing and fertilization must follow quickly to beat the changing of the seasons. His ultimate goal is to mechanize and streamline the process, so that 4/5 of the town's workforce can be freed from backbreaking field labor. However, he keeps a sharp secret. He can't let the farmers know that only 330 acres are being planted this spring. In an era where grain is survival, any perceived mistake could spark a riot among the conservatively minded populace. Roman is prepared to be ruthless if necessary, believing that sacrificing the few for the sake of long-term order and progress is a bargain worth making. Putting his cup aside, he informs Moore that he's heading off to clear some timber, leaving the supervision of the plowing in the manager's hands. Moore is left stammering in confusion, unable to fathom why a noble would ever choose to chop wood with his own hands. Ignoring the bewildered look on the man's face, Roman grabs a heavy axe from the nearby workbench. As he walks away from the main manor, a small, bandaged figure comes running down the path, calling out for him to wait. Roman turns to find Gwen, who reminds him with a shy but firm look that she was appointed as his personal attendant. "You have a point. Come along, then," Roman says, offering a rare, gentle smile to the young girl. Gwen's face lights up with joy as she skips along behind him, following him toward the outskirts of the estate. They reach the North Vegetable Garden of Origin Manor, an area where the wild forest has begun to reclaim the land. The sunlight filters through the dense canopy of pine and fir trees, creating a serene, golden atmosphere. Roman sets to work immediately, his axe biting deep into a tree trunk as digital notifications of experience points float before his eyes. After a long session of manual labor, he pauses to wipe the sweat from his brow, exhaling a long, weary breath. He stops to examine the thick carpet of pine needles covering the forest floor, noticing something interesting. The needles have partially decomposed into a layer of pine-rich soil, providing a perfect, natural source of nutrient-rich fertilizer. "This should be enough for the vegetable patch," he mutters, relieved that he won't have to haul heavy loads of manure from the town. Gwen approaches him timidly, her hands cupped together as she offers him a small gift she found while he was working. "It's a hazelnut," she chirps, her face glowing with pride as she shows off a handful of the forest treats. Roman takes one and expertly cracks it open, the sharp sound echoing through the quiet woods. He finds the nut crispy and fragrant, nodding its excellent taste before asking Gwen why she isn't eating any herself. The girl explains she ate plenty when she lived in the mountains, but Roman can see her heart is full just from his acceptance. He reaches out and gives her a gentle pat on the head, causing her to blush and look down with a soft smile. "I'm going back to chop trees now," he says, picking up his axe once more. The rhythm of the axe against wood resumes, the sound of steady strikes filling the air. Another notification appears as he gains 10 more points of experience, a tangible reward for his hard physical toil. "Gwen, the task is done. Let's head home," Roman calls out, waving a hand to get the girl's attention. Gwen looks up, her one visible eye sparkling with happiness as she follows her master back toward the manor. Back at the manor, a lavish feast is laid out across the table, featuring thick cuts of steak, fresh bread, and steaming bowls of soup. Roman enjoys the meal alongside Gwen and Saruman's tutor, the young girl offering a quiet, "Thank you for the Lord's generosity." The tutor's expression is grave as he reports that the town's farmers are growing desperate for land distribution, even offering to pay higher taxes in exchange. Roman remains unmoved, his focus on his plate as he questions why he should entrust fertile land to those who lack the vision to use it properly. He cuts into his steak with precise, measured movements, his calm demeanor belying the tension in the room. "That contract is a remnant of the previous owner," he declares firmly, asserting that on this territory, only his own laws and decrees will be followed. The tutor warns that such an aggressive stance could easily spark a revolt, urging Roman to take a slower, more cautious approach with the locals. Roman's eyes flash with a cold, unwavering resolve as he invites whatever backlash may come, refusing to be intimidated by his subjects. With a heavy sigh, the tutor closes his eyes, clearly troubled by the uncompromising path his young charge has chosen to take. Night falls over the quiet manor house, though the air remains thick with the unspoken conflict between the Lord and his people. The first light of dawn spills over the rooftops the next morning, signaling the start of another day of backbreaking labor. Dressed for work and carrying his axe, Roman leads Gwen out into the town, eager to continue his personal quest for progress and power. Deep in the woods, Roman swings his axe with tireless energy, each strike bringing him closer to his goal as the first point of experience is gained. The rhythm of his labor is steady and relentless, the sound of metal biting into wood echoing through the trees with every successful blow. Another notification appears in his vision, a small but significant reward for his manual toil as he continues to clear the dense forest. Pausing to catch his breath, Roman calculates his progress, knowing he must master these basic life skills to unlock more advanced abilities in the future. His moment of reflection is shattered by a frantic messenger who comes racing through the trees, gasping that something terrible has happened. In the town square, Saruman's tutor is already facing off against a growing mob, his voice booming as he demands they cease their rebellious behavior. The atmosphere is electric with tension as the restless townspeople gather in force, their faces a mask of desperation and growing anger. Roman steps forward to face the crowd, his voice sharp and demanding as he asks what they hope to achieve through such a public display of defiance. A representative of the farmers speaks up, his hands raised in a plea for the Lord to reconsider and distribute the fields to those who work them. Roman looks down at the man with a cold, uncompromising gaze, his answer short and final. I forbid it.